give another. Sounds good.
You can get started. Go ahead.
All right. Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for hopping on today. My name is Tanya Anstey. I am a single mom. I currently live in Central Florida, and I have been a travel agent almost 2.5 years now. And because of some of the complex health issues I personally have, reaching out and finding ways to help accommodate other travelers who have a variety of disabilities has just become something that I'm very passionate about. And I was able to, over the last few years, I've been able to learn a lot in regard to service and assistance animals. So I'm excited to be able to share that with you today. I also have Miss Cheryl Bloom, who is on with us. She is actually part of the Department of Transportation Committee in regards to utilizing assistance animals. So Cheryl, did you want to say a couple of things before we get started?
Sure. So I am a disabled person who has a service dog, and I've been traveling with my service dog now for 10 years. Tanya and I belong to a couple of different service dog groups on Facebook, and that's how we met. I was appointed to a DOT service animal advocacy group after the passage of the recent version of the Air Carrier Access Act. And I actually worked on the revision of the Air Carrier Access Act that was went into effect January of 2021. So I'm very familiar with all 121 pages of it, in case you want to know how many pages there are. So anyway, I'm here to answer any questions that anyone might have about the Air Carrier Access Act and how it's implemented, the changes involved in it. I'm also a pilot. My husband is a recently retired captain for Delta Airlines. And so I kind of have my fingers in a lot of things. I'm also a certified ADA coordinator. So anyway, I'm here to kind of back up Tanya and to answer any questions that you all might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what we are going to do is we'll work through the slides. We will answer all of the questions towards the end, kind of like we typically do. You can put some questions in the chat as we go along. Again, if for some reason they aren't addressed, we'll make sure that we come back and address them towards the end. I will also put the links that I'm using in the chat as well. So if you're watching on your laptop or cell phone and you are able to either copy and paste them to a notepad or something like that, feel free. And like I said, I will share the links with the recording as well. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. Like I said, we are going to talk about what to do with those furry family members. So as a bit of an overview, we're going to briefly touch on the differences between service dogs, emotional support animals, and pets. And then we're going to talk specifically about travel with each of those. I do want to give a note that please realize the laws and regulations we're going to discuss are for the United States. So we're going to touch on the American with Disabilities Act, the Air Carrier Access Act, etc. But please know that if you or a client has a service animal and is going to be traveling to a different country, whether that be using a cruise line or just flying internationally, please know that each country does have different rules and regulations. Some may or may not recognize service animals, so you'll want to do your due diligence in researching that for your client. So what is the difference between these types of animals? Pets, pretty self-explanatory. Those are going to be anything that is just part of your family that is not a human species. Emotional support animals. Now, these are typically your companion animals. They are for those with disabilities, and they are specifically for that comfort and companionship. They don't have any specialized training, and because they don't have that training, they are required to stay in pet-friendly spaces. The only accommodation in regards to emotional support animals is when it comes to housing. So that is a change that has been made over the last several years. So bear that in mind. Service dogs are specifically task-trained dogs for those with disabilities. And you'll find that the tasks that these dogs do vary so much. And that's because they are individually trained for their handler. So for example, if myself and Cheryl, we could have the same disabling condition, but her service dog may have different tasks than mine would, just because it is geared towards mitigating that disability. So they are, in general, allowed in the same spaces as the general public. They do, with their handler, have accommodations for housing, flying, and being allowed in not pet-friendly spaces. So here are some of the laws that are incredibly helpful. This first link that I am going to paste over in the chat for you is the frequently asked questions about service animals. So this breaks it down so much. It is incredibly helpful. Does have that definition. Again, it's a specific dog that's been task trained to mitigate that disability. Some great things that you can find on here, for example, is are service animals required to be professionally trained? No, they are not. Another thing that can be great is this also covers, bear with me, I'm looking for it here. It does talk about, some of the accommodations that we'll discuss momentarily, but here is also where you can find information as far as those requirements. A lot of people think that service dogs have to be registered or certified. That is incorrect. As a matter of fact, per the ADA, the online certifications have no legal grounding. So just be aware of that, there isn't any sort of certification or registration that is required. So that can be a super helpful resource there, just about utilizing service dogs in general. This one here is the Department of Transportation. And I will, there we go. So we are going to go over this a little bit more once we get to the service dog traveling. So when it comes to your pets, in general, the first thing you're going to want your client to do is to make sure that they get their pets checked out by their vet. There are certain breeds of dogs, for example, that it is very much discouraged for them to fly, particularly the breeds that have like the shorter noses. They've found that the altitude changes can cause some issues. So just to make sure, please have your client check with their vet, give a clearance saying that, okay, yes, that your pet is able to particularly fly. As far as cruises go, most of them are not pet friendly. Of course, you can always check with that specific cruise line for their regulations. As far as hotels and lodging, pets do have to stay in pet-friendly hotels. We do have different vendor, those websites will typically say, yes, we're pet-friendly, and include any type of logistics around bringing a pet with you. You likely will need to inform them prior to arriving so they know that you will be bringing that pet. When you consider flights, of course, like I said, you will want to talk to the specific airlines because those policies do vary. Typically, the pets are either in the cabin or in cargo, depending on size. So if they're going to be in the cabin, they have to be in a carrier that is going to fit completely under the seat in front of the passenger. So keep that in mind. If they are too large to fit there, then they will need to be traveling via cargo in whatever appropriate size kennel. You will want to be very aware of the weather. So for example, I had a client who was relocating from here in Central Florida out to Alaska. So he and his wife and kids, we booked all of their flights. I booked for their 2 dogs to travel with them. And we got an email 2 days prior that said, hey, the weather in Seattle, which was where their layover was, it's too hot. They're in the middle of a heat wave. We could not have any animals in the cargo. So in communicating that with the airline and then with my client, we were able to brainstorm, but just be aware that depending on where and which airports are being utilized, the weather will play a part. I know here in Orlando, during the summer months, they will not allow pets to be in cargo for that same reason. So just be aware of that when you're communicating with your clients in regards to traveling with their pets. This one here is just for the vet checks. It just has some general information that you can go through on researching and what information to get when you're at the vet's office. And yes, most airlines won't ship the pets in their cargo due to those heat restrictions. Absolutely. Yeah, we ended up working it out where there was about a week and a half in October where it was warm enough in Alaska and not too hot here in Orlando that we were able to take care of the dogs that way. So now, travel with emotional support animals, or ESAs. Now, emotional support animals, while they have accommodation for housing, the Air Carrier Access Act now allows the airlines to consider them as pets when flying. So they will have these same pet fees and regulations. They are also considered pets still if they're going to be in a hotel type accommodation that is less than 30 days long. So again, it will need to be a pet friendly place. They can be charged whatever fee is associated with that. So now, those service dogs that we were talking about.
Let me correct that. They will be charged a pet fee, not they can be. They will be charged a pet fee.
Thank you. Yes, yes. So if there's a fee, which there is, they will be charged that. Absolutely. Thank you, Cheryl. So with service dogs, the service dogs are to be allowed to accompany their handler on the flights because, again, they are considered medical equipment. A couple of things. One thing I did want to mention is that a lot of times people will say, well, there are people who have allergies, and yet there are also folks with service dogs. It is up to in this case, the airline, in other cases, whichever establishment, it is up to them to accommodate both. So a client with a service dog should not be denied access based on allergies or something like that. So again, the Air Carrier Access Act does allow airlines to require some forms to be filled out. So you will want to check with those. Again, that form is over here on the DOT link that I put in there. So some of the things that in regards to denial, again, if it's violating some sort of safety regulations, if they have some reason to believe that there's a direct threat, which is not typical since service dogs are so highly trained. Again, those health requirements at different locations. So we are going to talk about this. Let's see here. Okay, so let me finish walking through this and then we'll go back to that form in just a moment. So again, those exceptions are violation of safety. If there's going to be a significant disruption or health requirements, the airlines are able to ask 2 questions of the handler. Is this a dog that is required to accompany the passenger due to a disability? And what tasks has the animal been trained to perform? So for example, a client might say, yes, this is a service animal that's required to mitigate my disability. What tasks has the animal been trained to perform? They could say something like blood sugar level notifications. They may alert to blood pressure increases, might alert to a potential seizure. So they will have those tasks. The handler is very aware of that. The airlines are allowed to, observe and make a determination. So for example, if someone is with a service dog in an airport and that animal is being disruptive or is not properly behaved, the airline is able to utilize that to determine, the ability to fly. So on this, the DOT, again, I did put that link in the chat. There are forms that the airlines will require. The attestation to the service dog's behavior health. So let me pop this one open real quick. So this is what the form looks like. Again, the client will be able to fill this out. It just attests to the fact that they are up to date on their shots, that they have been trained and are able to, potty when and where they're supposed to, those type of things. So you will want to make sure that your client is aware that this needs to be filled out. And then the second one is that, again, the potty training is finished, taken care of to make sure that, again, that the service animal is not having accidents. Those are the forms that can be required. Again, there are some tips down here on this page for your client and yourself. So the second part of this, let's see. So Leigh said, when we're qualifying our clients, they mentioned that they are traveling with a service dog. Can we ask those 2 questions? Cheryl, I'm gonna send that to you. I wanna say yes, because we would have to therefore answer them. So you can tell your client about the questions. Gotcha, okay, perfect. So bear with me while I think of how to explain this. Since we do not directly work with the vendor as far as, I am not a Delta employee, I am not a Spirit employee. That is what Cheryl's meaning when she says that we're not the gatekeeper. So I've found that typically handlers are pretty forthcoming, but really they just have to say, hey, I'm going to be traveling with a service dog. So, that is where we land with that. As far as hotels go, again, guests with service dogs do need to be provided the same opportunity to reserve any available room as the guest that does not have disabilities. They cannot be restricted to pet-friendly rooms, nor can they be charged a pet fee. If the dog causes damage, then the hotel can charge a fee, in the same way as any other guest if a kid writes on the wall or, whatever, something along that lines. Service dogs are not allowed in pools due to sanitation issues. Again, the handlers tend to be aware of these type of things. Of course, if they ask you, hey, can I go in the pool with my dog? Now you know how to answer that. Rental cars. Service dog teams cannot be refused based on the service dog. They must be afforded the same, the same access as non-disabled passengers. So as a person who is helping your client navigate this, what happens if they are denied service? So your client is able to reach out to the State Protection and Advocacy Agency. They can reach out to the Attorney General's office, again, the hotel or rental car corporate office. They can file a complaint with the Department of Justice. That is the entity that does investigate and handle complaints in regards to access issues. And then, of course, if they are, continued to be denied and it can't be resolved, they can also discuss with their credit card company inappropriate charges. Let's see here. So Jason asked, will the handler be in trouble if the service dog jumps into a pool to try to help someone if they have been trained to do such things? Again, Cheryl did answer that and she said no. If the dog's responding to the person in the pool as they are trained, then that's fine. But if it's just because the dog wants to swim, not so much. Good question, Jason. So as a bit of a review, we'll kind of wrap it up and get into additional questions you all might have. For the purposes of travel, emotional support animals and pets are treated the same. Service dogs are to have the same, their handlers are allowed the same access and treatment as those without disabilities. They are never required to disclose their specific medical information. And then again, the ADA in general, the ADA website in general, whoops, wrong one, bear with me 1 second, can be a great option just in general for any type of information about the American with Disabilities Act. So what we will do now, I'll go back to the very beginning. Are there any questions before we launch into questions? Cheryl, is there anything you want to add? Go for it.
So there are four or maybe five airlines that have gone to third-party vendors to approve passengers who have service dogs. And we are running into a lot of problems with getting approvals for this. And I just ran into one today. So the airlines that have third-party vendors are Allegiant, JetBlue, Spirit, Alaska, and Sun Country. So if you don't know what a third-party vendor is, let me explain it to you. It's a process by which the airlines have gone to approving service dogs through a portal. And the third-party vendor is called Open Doors. And they are now either re-diagnosing or undiagnosing or deciding whether or not your service dog is legitimate. And so you fill out the DOT form off the airline's website and you submit it to this third-party vendor through a portal. It's Allegiant, JetBlue, Spirit, Alaska, and Sun Country. Did you get all those, Michelle? I can type them in the box if you want. So, and Allegiant and JetBlue are the two biggest offenders. So anyway, so you submit the form and then we believe, and we're going to verify this, that the first 2 times that the form is looked at, it's through artificial intelligence because they're looking for keywords. And so Today we tricked, it's called, what is it? Stump the dummy. So we resubmitted the form and typed out a big long sentence rather than, keywords about what the dog was task trained to do. And it went through like a breeze. So the key word here is, instead of using the task of DPT, which is deep pressure therapy, you type out a big long sentence. My dog is task trained to provide deep pressure therapy to mitigate my disability. They don't know what to do with it. So it got approved. So we're trying to figure out how to do this to get the approvals the first time. Now, some of these people who are being denied are long time medallion, silver medallion. Now I'm a Delta person, so I don't know what all these other, I guess on JetBlue, it's called Mint, which is their premium passenger program. And so this is a person who is a Mint passenger, and she's been denied 3 times. And so it's very frustrating because until you submit the form 3 times, you don't get to talk to a person. And it's very frustrating. So we're trying to figure out what the workarounds are. So in our meeting with our DOT Service Animal Review Committee on July, I'm actually flying out to DC, and I've got a stack of probably 15 denials through Allegiant and JetBlue and now Alaska on this whole issue. So I don't know if any of you travel agents have run across this, but take note and tell your people, don't worry about it, just write it out and make it a long description of what the task is. And it'll eventually get approved, because it's just ridiculous. So, like I said, I've been doing this for 12 years, and it's a new process since 2021. And this Open Doors vendor is not being very user-friendly, I guess is a good word. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly what the solution is, but we're going to try and figure it out.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
With that being said, what we will do is we'll go ahead and hop into the questions. If you'll have a question, if you'll raise your hand, I'll go ahead and unmute you so that way you can ask that question, and then we'll go from there. So Michelle, you are going to be first.
Hello. Sorry. I am taking a trip next April. We're going to Carnival, but we'll be flying to Miami first. And we'll be stopping in Jamaica and Grand Cayman Island. I know you touched on other countries having their laws, but where, and you might have said it, but I was trying to write, sorry.
No
My
worries.
daughter has a service dog. So where do I find all the rules in these other countries? Like, what am I looking up to find them?
Usually, I know Jamaica has a tourist specific page. I will typically start with Google and say, what are the requirements in this country? You can look at the International Pet Travel website. And, typically wherever the government website is, that has information regarding animals.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Allison.
Yeah, I actually have the opposite issue of, I have a client that has severe dog allergy. And so is there a way for us to know if there's going to be any pets on the flight?
Yes. So when they make their travel arrangements, so there is less than 1% of the people in the world who have dog allergies that rise to the level of a disability. And usually it's cats. So when she makes her reservations, she needs to inform the airline that she does have a dog allergy. And so is it proximity, or is it, does she need to have, it's like a peanut allergy. So if someone gets on an airline with a peanut allergy, they need to have the airplane actually cleaned. And so, but someone with a dog allergy, is she allergic by touch, by airborne, or what? But
Yeah, it's the airborne, but
okay,
anything less than 2 hours, she's okay, but
okay,
any flight over 2 hours, after a while, she just can't breathe.
okay. So some people, it depends. And so, sorry, I'm going to say it depends a lot because I work in the legal field. So, but what she needs to do is, if her flight is more than 2 hours, and she cannot take medication to mitigate the side effects, then she needs to talk to the airline and let them know that she has an allergy that rises to the level of disability. Those are key words. So when she flies, and either they will make sure that there are no service dogs and no pets on the airplane, or because she has to be accommodated just like anybody else who has a disability. So, and those are the key words. It rises to the level of disability.
Okay, thanks. That's good to know.
You're welcome. Not my first rodeo. I have to do this with schools because sometimes there's a student who has a disability, has an allergy to a dog. And so they have to make sure that they put, if there's a student with a service dog, that they're not in the same classroom. And it's rare.
Yes. Are there any other questions?
You guys are too easy.
We'll make sure that we have you come back in the future, and we'll definitely build from here. Any other questions out there before we kind of close up? Mimi, did you have a specific question? We did talk about emotional support animals and pets as well. You're welcome, Barbara. Mimi said, are we only speaking of service animals? Let me see if. All right, so Mimi, you are unmuted. You can ask your question.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to see if we were only speaking on service animals and furry family, or are we talking about other disabilities in order to help accommodate our clients?
Okay, so yes, today was specifically about assistance animals. So we did talk about traveling with pets and emotional support animals and service animals as well. As far as other disability accommodations, I know we talked a bit about autism and that population last week. So if there is something more specific you're looking for, either go ahead and put that in the chat, or you can also ask in the Facebook group that we have as well. I hope that answers your question. Jason asked, what are the limits of service animals? Is it only dogs? Now, it used to be dogs and miniature ponies, but I believe they have adjusted that to just dogs. Is that correct, Cheryl?
Yes, for flying, it's just dogs. So for public access, it is dogs and miniature horses. But for flying, it's just dogs.
Good question. You're welcome. Let's see, Patrice or Deidre, do either of you have that Facebook link readily available to put in the chat? I don't have it open right now. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, Mimi, definitely post. Deidre put the group there. So go ahead and click on that. Make sure you do answer the questions so that you can be added to the group. And then there's a lot of resources that are there. Any other questions? You're welcome. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you guys so much for hopping on. Oh, Michelle, I think you do have another one. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just really quickly, do you have a Facebook underneath your name in case I have any other questions? I asked my daughter if she has any questions since we're gonna be traveling, like I said, that I might not be thinking about. Is it just under your regular name that I can find you?
Yes, I am also a member on the Evolution Enterprise Facebook page. It is, I will include, I'm going to go ahead and put my full name in the chat box so that you can search on Facebook for me. And Cheryl does have a group called Flying with the Service Dog. So that is available there as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
You're very
family.
welcome.
Jump in the chat box and show our appreciation and love to both Tanya and Cheryl. Thank you, ladies, for such an informative training today. We do want to put that note. There was a question about your Founders Council member. If you are not aware of who your Founders Council member is, please reach out to your sponsor and ask them, because your platinum may not necessarily be a Founders Council member. So be sure to reach out to your sponsor and find out who your Founders Council member is. That's an important thing for you to know, because they are your go-to person in the event that you need something or there's some issues. So it is important that everyone know who their respective Founders Council member is. So to just answer that question, please be sure to provide that so that you can answer all of the questions correctly. But again, thank you everyone for being on our call. We have a different training scheduled every week, a new topic, because we want to make sure that we are well-rounded. We are working through a list of things and topics to cover. We cannot by any means cover everything all in 1 week in one training. So we are trying to separate them out and bring on different trainers to help expound on that information. So just be aware that you want to go through and pay attention. Patrice posts our subject flyers every week of what the upcoming training will be regarding. So always be sure that you pay attention to that so that you can take advantage of it. We don't want you kind of picking and choosing which ones to be on. We want to be sure that you're getting all of the information so that when your clients reach out to you, you are definitely an advocate and you have a broad base of information to be able to serve your clients with. Now, before we log off, I wanted to just swing back and make sure, Patrice, would you have anything you'd like to add before we close out today?
No, I'd just like to say, Cheryl, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your knowledge. We most definitely looking forward to seeing you come on again. Tanya, I'd like to tell you, thank you so much, just being such an amazing part of the team. Looking forward to seeing you back in August. And just say, as Deidre stated, don't pick and choose, because it might be a topic that you truly needed and you missed the boat. So I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one of you. Deidre will be on next Monday. And of course, the flyer will be coming out. Just stay plugged in. And again, when you are requesting to be part of the group, you must ask those 3 questions or you won't be let in. So I'm excited for this new piece that we're doing. And Deidre, as always, thank you for coming in because I was having technical difficulties. I want to give it back to you to close out.
All right, family. Again, we would welcome you. We thank you for being with us. If you have not already done so, please click on that link and join our official Facebook group. Take some time and go through there. There's been a lot of amazing posts, very informative with links and screenshots and websites to go to. So it has a lot of information. So you can always go to the little magnifying glass and search for a topic and see if it has already been posted on within the group as well. So with that being said, have a wonderful week, everyone, and we will see you back next week. Our call is officially over. Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everyone.